Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Screenplay Rewind. It's another continuation of Friends and Family Month. I'm Jeff.
I'm Ron.
And on the heels of the Academy Award nominated and Academy Award winning film, Dragon Ball Evolution, what do we get to watch this week to get the taste of that film out of our mouths, Ron?
This week, we are discussing Christina, my wife's pick, Spirited Away by Studio Ghibli.
Thank Christ. It's a good movie. Oh, my God. Woo! Dodged a bullet. No, actually, I think we should have some type of segment at least every other month now where we intentionally watch a movie that we know is going to be terrible just because that was a lot of fucking fun to record.
It was. It really was.
It's a lot of fun. I mean, Ron didn't get to talk much for half of it, but I think he still had a good time. And I had a fun time just
once
foaming
you
at the mouth
started
and screeching into the microphone.
Yeah, once you started getting a little tired and needed to stop for air, I could start getting some words in.
Yeah, it tapped you in on the recording.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super stoked to cover Spirited Away, though. Yeah, our first Miyazaki movie on the pod.
It is.
Fucking love.
And they have a new one that
Hayao
just
Miyazaki.
came out.
Oh yeah, has that one been getting good buzz? I have not read into it much, but I knew that was.
I
happening.
heard a metric fuck ton about it before it came out, and then it came out, and I stopped hearing anything. So I don't know if that's good, bad, or just people don't care.
Well, are they really capable of even making a bad movie? I
don't know.
I think the worst movie in their catalog is probably around a 7.5 or an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
It's just that everything that's not a masterpiece or an instant classic is almost a letdown by their standards.
Yeah,
you know?
you can definitely rank their movies, I think, but the worst one in that ranking is not a bad movie. You know what I mean?
The worst film Studio Ghibli's ever made would be the cornerstone franchise film of any other studio, as far as animation is concerned. They're so fucking great.
They make good
They're
movies,
all
and then
good.
they make great movies, and that's pretty much their range.
It's the forgettable ones are just very solid. Like, you will never be disappointed by one. It's just, oh man, that one wasn't an instant classic like Princess Mononoke.
Yeah.
And Howl's Moving Castle and Spirited Away and all these, just their run over the past 30 years or so is incredible. And I need to watch more. I've been wanting to watch Grave of the Fireflies for a really long time. I plan to watch that one. We should probably cover My Neighbor Totoro on this podcast at some point just to get it, to give you an excuse to watch it, because that's one I've actually seen that you haven't.
I've always been interested in Kiki's Delivery Service too, but I've never watched it.
Yeah, my buddy Soapy is one of my online siege buddies. I plan to have him as one of the selections when we next do our Friends and Family Month, because he was wanting to hop in, and he has been telling me to watch that one, Kiki's, for a long time. So
there's been several times just perusing Best Buy that I almost just picked it up and bought it to watch it for the first time because I knew it was going to end up on the shelf anyway.
Of course,
if I watched it, but I just never did pull the trigger, and now it's on HBO, and I still haven't.
Have they ever made? I don't think they have. I feel like they should have a big Blu-ray
Box
collection. Set. If they dropped a big $100 or $150 Blu-ray of just at least their classics, like their top 10, I would buy that shit.
Let's see. Is there a box set?
If there is, I have not seen it, and if there is one, I would like to buy it because I have watched and loved a bunch of their movies, but I don't think I own any of them. I've mostly just I was kind of like a late bloomer with them. I had always heard how fantastic they were, but I only just started watching them within the past few years. So.
The Hayao Miyazaki Collection Works box set Blu-ray 11 movies.
Ooh. Is that on Amazon?
It is on Amazon.
My wallet just got a little bit lighter because I'd probably be buying that tonight. I need it.
Yeah, it's oh wow. Check your fucking formatting, seller. Caglioso.
Oh, is it not US based or whatever, where it doesn't work
Castle
on our
Sky,
Type 1?
Totoro, Kiki's Delivery Service, Porco Rosso, Mononoke, Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, Ponyo, Wind Rises. Yeah, it just goes on and on and on.
And I've actually moved away from owning physical media when it comes to movies a lot of the time, just because of how omnipresent everything is on streaming services now. With the exception of, I think you can make a very good case for owning animated movies because there's so much fidelity to the animation quality of something, especially like I'll talk about it a little bit once we get into the episode. But with Spirited Away, this was my first time watching the Blu-ray remaster of it because this is the higher res version.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had watched one of the DVD copies in the past when I watched this for the first time. Holy shit, the color is just gorgeous in this movie on that version. It's so crystal clear and colorful and vibrant, and it really works for these types of movies too, because a big sell behind Miyazaki movies is just feeling immersed in these peculiar little worlds, you know?
Right. Yeah, one thing that Norm on the Tested podcast was making a point of on Earwig and the Witch is the name of the new one.
Okay.
One point that he was making, because a couple of the guys on that show were disappointed that it was 3D animation. That's their first time doing CGI and not hand-drawn. But he was talking about, like, he's a big animation fan of anything animated. Even if the movie sucks, he can usually find something in the animation. And he was talking about how the nuances of CGI versus hand-drawn, like, it is a different medium. And he, for one, was basically very interested in what someone like Studio Ghibli could do with CGI animation. And he was very, very looking forward to it, because animation is the thing that they put a lot of time and detail and work into. So what could they do with the tools that CGI gives you?
Yes, for sure. The thing that it made me think of when you referenced that is I agree with them for the most part, in that if I have my choice, I will always take the more old school hand-drawn approach to it. But it doesn't mean that there's not an art craft to itself in the CG animated stuff. And the one that I immediately think of is Moana.
Yeah.
Moana has such gorgeous animation all the way through.
Frozen 2 is another one that's up there with Moana in the animation department. It is insane. But most of the time, CGI is used almost as a shortcut.
Like the Clone Wars cartoon.
Yeah.
The early seasons of the Clone Wars cartoon, while they're still, decent, just because they did have some good writing with Dave Filoni's team on that show, because I've started watching over the past few months more of the Clone Wars cartoons to get more up to date on characters that they were continuing into stuff like Mandalorian and some of their other, like the Bad Batch coming up. And I think there's a big stigma against it on the movie side, just because of how much they were using it as a shorthand, specifically for stuff like Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. Like with the Clone Wars, when you have that really shitty, blocky, just cheap looking CG, it gives good CG like Frozen 2 and Moana a bad rep, even though they don't deserve it. Yeah, because you can't have great stuff from it.
Yeah, it's been so abused for so long that it does get a bad rap, like you said. But I agree with him. I am very interested in what they could do with it, because
agree, 1,000%.
It's not all that different from look at Kenna Bridge of Spirits, right? That game coming up. If you had told me it was fucking Pixar movie, I would have believed you. And Ember Lab started out as an animation studio. This is their first game.
Oh, really? I didn't know. But it makes total sense. I hadn't heard that, though.
Yeah, so even if that game is the worst game ever made, I am buying it, probably pre-ordering it, and just walking around and looking at things. And another example of someone that I would trust with that kind of animation and that kind of art style would be Studio Ghibli.
Absolutely. We're about to start breaking into our chat of the actual film itself. So again, spoiler warnings for all films that we cover for the podcast. We go into nitty-gritty detail on everything we cover. So we are full spoiler warnings for Spirited Away. It dropped in 2001, written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki, the legend himself, from Studio Ghibli. And so this was one... So when I first broke into Miyazaki movies, the first two I watched, and it's probably part of the reason I probably still would have ended up having these kind of rise to the top of my list anyway, just because of their subject matters. But the first two that I watched were Princess Mononoke and Howl's Moving Castle, because those are the two that you had recommended to me.
Those are
initially.
My first two as well.
So they are still my favorites, but I have since then started moving around the rest of their catalog and just checking stuff out here and there. And one of the ones that I also, while I don't have it up there quite as high as those two, those are my two favorites, kind of 1A and 1B. I love Spirited Away. What are your just kind of initial general thoughts on Spirited Away?
Well, first off, I know we spent 10 minutes already talking about the animation Studio Ghibli does, but the animation in it is pretty top notch. even some of their pre-rendered backgrounds that they use and everything in it are just gorgeous to look at. I think it's an interesting concept. A lot of the stuff that you see in anime dealing with the spirit world and everything, and dealing with kami, is a lot different than this. It's taking place in the spirit world and it's dealing with kami, but they're just going about their lives, right? There's no giant big monster that's trying to eat anyone. There's no gods turning into demons like in Princess Mononoke. There's, none of that type of stuff. This could have been set anywhere. But,
it's interesting because the plot lines of something, especially like Mononoke, and to a lesser extent, I think Howl's Moving Castle has a bigger plot line, with more like movement through it. But that's also what kind of makes Spirited Away so cool, is that if it revolves around customers at a fucking bathhouse when you break it down to it. But it's so interesting in that even though it's based around the monotony of working in this bathhouse that is populated by customers that are spirits, I think the pacing is actually pretty strong. I am never bored by this movie.
I always feel like it has kind of a slow start, but it does kind of hit the ground running at the same time, so you're not in that frame of mind for very long. I think it picks up pretty quick as it goes along.
And even in the first act, as it's establishing stuff, this movie has maybe my favorite just overall collection of creative character designs and concepts for the spirits especially. I just wanted to run through some of my favorite ones. Okay, first of all, when her fucking parents turn into pigs is mortifying. And now in a fucking in a post Bloodborne world, I always think of those massive fucking Bloodborne pigs, and it just makes me smile. I can't help it.
The ones that you fist?
I wasn't gonna go into that much detail, but yes, you do that in Bloodborne. It's mortifying.
That's where the game gets its name.
It's true. Another one is just a little random offshoot character, but I fucking love, is the big radish spirit.
Yes, when the radish spirit. I was going to bring him up.
I fucking love the radish spirit, dude. Like, he's my spirit animal in this fucking movie, dude.
Yeah.
Because he's just, and I love towards the end, too. He's like one of the ones like cheering her on as he's fucking awesome.
The first time she meets him, he hides her in the elevator. Yeah. And when, I'm assuming it's a he. I mean, Kami probably don't have a gender. I don't know, but he when she gets to where she's going and the elevator opens, he pokes his head out and makes sure that like she's safe before he just gets back in the elevator and goes away. He just met her. Why does he care?
Radish spirit is an ideal to strive towards. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
I'm pretty sure I killed the stink monster in a Dark Souls game one time.
I think it's the things in New Londo, right? That shoot the spear out of their mouth.
He comes when he enters the fucking movie. I imagine a fucking Dark Souls boss health bar pop up at the bottom. Stink monster of the abyss.
The other thing that's interesting about this movie, though, is Studio Ghibli usually has great characters, but this movie isn't really about the journey so much or about the world as much as Mononoke or Howl's Moving Castle or any of the other movies. I think we've still only mentioned those two. I have seen other ones, I promise. But those are the ones that come to mind when I think Studio Ghibli. But it's not so much about the world or the adventure. This is a straight-up movie that is just solely about the characters almost.
Yes, and they represent their theme that I'll talk about of material worth versus spiritual worth.
Yes.
That I'll go into a little bit more detail. It's kind of like, but they don't shove it down your throat. They are preaching an ideal as far as material versus spirit in this movie, but it's very subtle.
I would say that there is a guiding light, but it's just up to you to follow it. Right? Yeah. They don't hold your hand.
Which is the best type of writing. Yeah. You don't want to cram a theme or a motif down someone's throat of like what like the moral. You don't want the moral to be bashing the viewer upside the head, or then you're kind of it's defeating the purpose, because you want people to kind of pick up on themes and recognize themes, but not be annoyed by just how much you're trying to like crowbar your views into the film. Mm-hmm. But just back to some of the real quick, I wanted to finish up some of the other character designs that I loved. So before going into like the more iconic ones, some of the more side characters I like. I love the rumbling, tumbling heads that just roll around like. It's so fucking random, and
they're
love
her
that,
bodyguards, aren't they? Isn't that how they're described?
Yeah, essentially.
What the fuck are they gonna do? She's a fucking witch.
I love. Yeah, why does she need bodyguards in the first place? Because she's basically fucking.
She's the most
Agatha,
powerful
dude.
person. Yeah, she's Agatha Harkness.
Yeah,
it was Yubaba all along.
That's someone will get 1 billion YouTube videos. We need to stop the recording, remove that. We are making that video and actually going viral because that is fucking genius, Ron. That is the best idea we've ever fucking had.
Or was it Zaniba all along?
True, that too.
Zaniba!
So I love her talking skull phone. It's so bizarre. She has a little like speakerphone that's a skull, and she like smacks. It's like a fucking like little blue Yeti skull. But
it like connects to anything. Like she talks through it through the door knocker.
Yeah, the door knocker's also
the door knocker's pretty awesome.
Reminds me of Labyrinth a little bit too.
I've never seen it.
The lantern on the foot towards the end, I love, and I love how when they're waving as they're leaving, you see the foot lantern waving from the post.
That
too.
made me think of the broom handle scarecrow guy, pogoing around in Howl's Moving Castle.
And then obviously these characters are some of the most iconic character designs in animation ever. I think the design of Yubaba is very iconic. No Face is also very iconic in animation to me.
No Face is a huge fan base and a big player in cosplay.
Oh yeah.
Adam Savage has even posted a video of him making that, and like it has the hidden mouth in the chest that opens up, and he's got like fucking food that his assistant walks around with that you can feed it, and then he can retrieve it and give it back to his assistant.
Yep.
It's great.
So the Yubaba's and No Face are very iconic. Haku's dragon form is also very iconic.
Haku's dragon form is pretty awesome looking.
Can we just talk about how fucking metal and badass Japanese dragons are? Japanese dragons are my favorite. They look so fucking badass in every rendition.
And, we've already declared spoiler warning, but you watch the way he flies, and it's almost like an eel swimming, and you find out that he's a river spirit.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so... and also just I want to just real quickly mention is these little bits of charm in the details. All of these monster designs should be horrifying, but Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli always manage to bring this type of like mysticism and charm behind everything that should be scary. When things are supposed to be scary, like in the instance when No Face starts like eating people, it is kind of scary, but for the most part, you see this like the customers that are going to the bathhouse, they should be terrified.
Yeah.
Like some of these weird animal hybrids and shit, they should be scary, but they never are. They always have this like just bizarre charm to them that I think really makes his movies work and feel special.
You want to talk about charming? Let's go back to the radish spirit. His hat is a fucking rice bowl.
Yeah, there's so much little like fantastic and wonderful attention to detail.
You know how terrifying the radish spirit should be if you just saw him walking around?
Also, now that I think about it, the big radish also makes me think a lot of Dark Souls of this. The pop-up mushrooms from Dark Souls.
The mushroom
the
parents?
Radish. The mushroom parents that will fucking punch you out of your goddamn skeleton, dude.
It took us 18 minutes to get there, but quick aside... Quick aside.
We need a musical stinger for every time we say quick aside now. That's like the sidebar from the Junk Food Samba podcast.
But one of probably my all-time favorite meme on the internet is the mushroom parent punching the dude's skeleton out of his body.
Love it. I want that on a shirt.
I want that on a shirt so bad.
I needs it. I needs it.
The most scared I've ever seen a YouTuber be was Epic Name Bro, and he turns around and there's one winding up a punch, and he just screams and like literally dodges backwards until his stamina is gone.
They are more terrifying than any boss they could ever come up with in their entire fucking company. Maybe my favorite character design, the fucking sootball spirits, dude, are so goddamn adorable, and the sounds they make and shit.
Yeah.
I fucking love that scene where she has tried to help one by picking up a piece of coal or whatever.
And then they all just
and then the other one sees it and they saw that they got help and they just fucking drop it on themselves and you start hearing like, he does a little like screech like he's actually being hurt, and needs help. It's so adorable. And I love that scene when she's walking away from them and they're hopping up above the banister to like say goodbye to her. She's leaving the room. They're so fucking adorable, dude.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's a metaphor in there when Kamaji says that if they don't work, they just turn back into soot.
Yes,
I'm sure there's a metaphor in there somewhere.
Yeah, is he a callback to Dr. Robotnik?
I believe maybe he's even created little monsters.
He has to be, right? Just based on his design. He has the glasses where you never see his eyes, and he has like the big.
Unless Robotnik is a callback to the same thing this guy is, whatever that may be. We should probably mention there's probably going to be a lot of cultural touchstones that we're just not familiar with.
Yeah.
Growing up in the West.
Which is also just a fascinating thing to think about, is that they're so good about their character design and their character development and everything that even though we are missing a lot of those cultural touchstones, we can still fall in love with aspects of their movies.
Yes.
That's such good fucking movie making.
That's just
dude.
Good storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I wanted to talk about the interesting thing to me is, as far as the character development is concerned, is I actually really like the kind of progression that the main character goes throughout the movie, because most of the time the main characters do have progression in these movies, but they're usually not like as striking as Chihiro is.
Yes.
I like how they represent with her being clumsy and her always falling all the time, and how how little confidence she has in herself.
You're such a dope.
Yeah. And then she comes into her own and becomes a little badass by the end of the movie.
Yes. She is so annoying at the beginning, and she is like the most privileged little girl.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
She's the worst. And the fact that I like her so much by the end is just a chef's kiss of a fucking character.
The first time
she is a fucking little brat.
The first time I saw this, like, is this going to be the first Studio Ghibli movie I don't get through? But yeah, because, I mean, you're supposed to hate her kind of at the beginning. And then you find yourself rooting for her. And then she's one of your favorites at the end.
She's great. Also, how the fuck did I not recognize that this was the voice of Lilo from Lilo and Stitch? Because as soon as I saw, I started to think about where I've heard this voice from. I was like, oh, you fucking idiot! It's Lilo.
It's not even any different.
It's the same fucking voice. I don't know how I can pick up on some obscure dude that was a character actor in a movie I saw 15 fucking years ago, but then can't place the fucking actress who's playing Lilo using the same goddamn voice in the same fucking time period of films being made. I just don't understand my own brain.
It's probably also worth mentioning that you and I are dub fans of anime.
Yes.
So we just lost half the audience for this there. But
what is that? Just random aside, play on quick aside. What is Bobby? Is Bobby sub, dub, or both? Like, what is he?
I'm pretty sure he's dub. I'm pretty sure he's a dub fan as well.
We can continue to be friends. But with this character, with Chihiro, I like their development. Let's really quickly go ahead and acknowledge the cast while we're talking about some of the actors, because the cast in this movie is fucking fantastic. Devay Chase, we mentioned, she plays Chihiro, the voice of Lilo as well. Suzanne Plachette plays Yubaba and Zeniba. Jason Marsden is Haku. Susan Egan is Lin. David Ogden Steers is Kamaji. I love his casting too. His voice works so fucking well.
It's so good, and that character is so great.
He's the best. He's the, you want to talk about goddamn? How do we not mention the fucking Spider-Man Foreman with Mr. Fantastic fucking legs and arms, and he's so lovable and so he should be fucking terrifying.
He should be.
But he's one of the most lovable characters in the entire goddamn movie, because their voice casting and their characterization of all of their movies is so goddamn perfect all the time that everything just fucking works, even if it shouldn't. So fucking good. Lauren Holly plays Chihiro's mother. Another voice. As soon as I heard it, I was actually able to place because I'm a huge fan of The Shield. And
okay, well, I don't watch that. I was gonna say I'm not familiar with her.
Oh no, I was saying the next. I was leading into the next one.
Okay.
Michael Chiklis playing Chihiro's father. He played the Thing in the Fantastic Four movies. He's the main character in The Shield that I adore. His voice is very distinguishable, so I was actually able to. I could pick him out, but couldn't figure out Shrieking Lilo. Let's see. Tara Strong plays Bo. The fucking giant murder baby is terrifying. That's one that actually does scare me a little bit. The scariest character in the entire movie is just a 12-foot fucking tall baby.
And that's Harley Quinn, right? Is Tara Strong?
Yes.
Harley Quinn. Yeah.
No, not the original Harley Quinn, but the in the Arkham games,
yes.
The modern Harley Quinn voice, Tara Strong. Yeah. Which is fitting because she also played one of the babies in Rugrats.
Oh well,
so
there you go.
She does such a good. Anytime anyone needs to have a baby voice.
Angelica?
No, she is actually Dill. She's Tommy's little brother.
Oh, okay.
She is. Anytime anyone, if you ever hear a fucking baby being voiced in any movie or TV show in the past 15 to 20 years, it's always Tara Strong.
Now she did do the live action cameo on Arrow, right?
Yes.
In silhouette, and you just see the pigtails in silhouette.
Yeah, that was her.
Sorry. Quick aside, I guess.
Quick aside, Inception, yeah. Bob Bergen does the voice of No Face and the Frog. He's
my God.
fantastic too.
I
love he has such a good performance because he also is playing that frog,
Yeah.
And then he does the like sinister rendition of the frog voice when No Face fucking Slimer eats him, dude.
Yes. And then there's a moment at the beginning that I just remembered as soon as we started talking about the frog, that Haku like freezes the frog in midair for a few moments as they run away as he notices Chihiro. And I turned to Chris because we watched it together. I turned to Chris and I was like, why do I get the feeling Haku does that to him all the fucking time? It's like as soon as the frog hits the ground, he's just like, God damn it, did he do it again?
And I had half joked about like how No Face, when he starts eating things and people, he does it. He has to be a Slimer reference. I cannot believe because just
he
the way
looks like
that
it.
the way that he is emoting as he's eating shit, and then just his outline of a ghost shape,
that kind of lumpy shape.
Yes, he's just like a more anime rendition of Slimer. I swear to God, he has to be a callback in some way.
I love that he ends up with the hair and like the frog legs, dude. The front and back frog legs.
Yes, I love No Face. He's one of my favorite characters they've ever had in Ghibli. It's crazy. Their design team is so good.
So good.
That Totoro is their mascot. They could have a rotating thing of like 10 different fucking mascots because they have such good characterization and design in all of these goddamn movies, man. Fucking what's his name in Howl's? Billy Crystal as the Flame could be with their fucking mascot.
Yes.
Yeah. Fucking like one of the best characters I've ever had is Billy Crystal as the Flame.
And Princess Mononoke, the princess herself with that mask and the fur.
Oh yeah. Fuck. I think I just need to sit down.
The little spirit dudes in Princess Mononoke?
Yeah. The little sprite dudes? Yeah, it's fantastic. They could be... Yeah, Totoro has always been their mascot, but dude, they have so many good ones. And I now just really want to sit down for an entire weekend and just fucking binge through their entire catalog. I actually, at one point, looked up their film release docket in chronological order just to go back. I think In the Name of the Wind or something like that. It's something with the wind in the title. I think that was their first one, and then Grave of the Fireflies is their second one. But I do need to seek out more because I've seen 5 or 6 of their movies. Gravitate mostly towards Spirited Away, Howl's, and Mononoke, as we've referenced previously, but always like pretty much everything I've watched of there, so I need to watch more.
Again, they go from good to great, and that's their range.
Yeah, their rotation is good, great, instant classic.
Yep.
Good, great, instant classic. And just to have that fucking batting average is ridiculous. So, what's did you take any notes while going to the movie, or you're just kind of...
No, just kind of winging it, following your lead.
Just kind of winging it. Okay,
I've seen it a few times, so...
This was my second time watching it, so I still wanted to just jot down some kind of talking points. One thing I had noted, I fucking love the piano theme that plays.
So the first thing that popped into my head rewatching it this time was, oh, I see where Zelda Breath of the Wild got their inspiration for their music. I
hadn't considered that, but yeah,
if you
right
listen to any of the music to the Breath of the Wild soundtrack, it is very Studio Ghibli. Honestly, Spirited Away is the closest thing to it I have heard since that game came out.
It's such a good theme.
It's
I
so
need to
good.
add it to my. It's very
mellow considering what the fuck is going on.
It's perfect.
Think about how fucked up what is actually happening in this movie is, and then you just had this little piano riff that just is soothing and calming.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say it's wonderful writing music. That kind of mellow instrumental is what I have for all of my kind of separate little YouTube.
Yeah, I could see someone going to Spotify and turning that on, and just sitting down to write a short story or something. I could see that.
Yeah, because you want music like that is kind of motivating and it puts you in kind of like a zen state, where you're in a good place to be creative and not overly. Because as much as I love it, I don't want to listen to like the Wonder Woman, something that you don't want something that intense. You want probably like the most intense. I would go with writing music. Just this is the quickest.
Wonder Woman's theme makes me want to try to stop a semi truck with my bare hands.
Or just go start a bar fight that you didn't need to start just because you just want to go kick someone's ass. It's so fucking good. Also, over that vein, the Mad Max Fury Road theme makes me want to go punch somebody because it just gets me so fucking jazzed, dude. Fucking love it.
I live, I die, I live again.
Same composer guy too that helped make both of those. It's fucking great.
I just want a flaming guitar. I don't even play guitar, and I just want a flaming guitar.
Why don't I own a T-shirt of the Doof Warrior on the back of that fucking... Like, that's such a great T-shirt to own, and why don't I have it? I am poorly lacking in that regard.
Poorly lacking in your shirt regards?
Yes, I need to bump up my goddamn T-shirts. Doof Warrior, more Ghibli shirts, give it to me. I want a shirt of the fucking Haku dragon, dude.
Oh, fuck I know. Dude.
I need it. Yeah,
that'd be really
So let's talk a little bit about the themes of the film. So the main driving force of the movie, in my estimation, is I alluded to it a little bit earlier about greed. That seems to be the main driving force behind the characters because the thing that it seems leads to because by all accounts, Chihiro should not have made it out of this scenario. The thing that makes her different and actually able to like kind of not pass like obviously she does pass tests throughout the movie and she is a hard worker, but her resistance to being to greed and to avarice is what saves her multiple times from being eaten by No Face specifically, and saves her initially. Her family should have been fucked because her parents they're just complete disregard for needing to pay for that food first fucks them over so bad because there's like, yeah, we'll just pay for it. Like one of the notes that I made a mental note of. I was just about to say, yeah, the dad's line about the credit cards tells you all you need to know about like her fucking parents are jackasses.
Yeah.
And if Chihiro was in that same kind of line of thinking, they would have been fucked because all three of them should have been pigs. They would have been because it almost seemed to be like a trap for humans. Like they get very irritated by the fact that, a human's around, but when they just leave the fucking food out unnecessarily, it almost felt like a trap to me, like they were luring humans in to be pigs for the slaughter.
I always took it as if we were that close to sunset where, the spirits and the kami are going to come out, then it's getting prepped. It's getting ready.
Yeah. But they also seem to be, because if you notice that it's not like her parents are the only pigs there. There's a shit ton of pigs. I'm assuming all of the pigs are other humans, right?
Oh, I've never considered that.
Been lured in. So I almost think that they have the amusement park there, and they specifically set up the food there as a trap to lure in people to become the pigs for the slaughter. So they're very fortunate that Chihiro isn't greedy and, because Chihiro is actually trying to get them to stop and, wait to pay for the food like you should, but they just sit in and start fucking eating. The first time I watched this movie, I wish I had a face cam of when they turned into pigs, because I was not expecting it in the fucking slightest. Threw me for a goddamn loop. I was like, what movie am I watching? It's such a good twist because they're alluding to the spirits a little bit with their dialogue about, the little pieces of the environment as they're driving through the woods and shit. But to have her parents go from eating food to just literally turning into fucking pigs is a fucking turn, dude.
Yeah.
And it should take you right out of the movie. But again, that fucking Ghibli and Miyazaki magic, dude, I'm even more in because I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
But then you're like, well, now what?
Yeah, and I absolutely love that it just ends up being her kind of having to prove herself to these spirits, because I always find it interesting too how they're appalled by the very scent of a human.
Yes.
That Haku has a line where he actually tells them, her stench of human or whatever will wear off in 3 days as long as she just hangs out here.
As long as she's eating our food.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing about Chihiro is she starts out like seemingly supremely selfish and stubborn, and she learns a lesson about the selfishness and all that as the movie goes on. But that classic anime protagonist stubbornness that she has is just what is the only reason that she and her parents walk away from this.
Yep, they are very fortunate to have her as their daughter. Because if they were anything like the parents, if she was anything like her mom and dad, who are they're even when they're not being greedy, they're just kind of assholes. They're always like, stop, their daughter is scared in the creepy ass fucking murder tunnel.
Don't cling, make me
stop
trip.
clinging on to me, I'm gonna trip. Like, fuck you, mom.
So can we take a second to talk about just the dad's expression driving through the woods at 80 miles an hour?
With his daughter not wearing a seatbelt? What the fuck? I'm not even a parent, and I was cringe. Did that make you physically cringe being a dad?
Oh, my God.
I was mortified, and I don't even have kids. And when he's just fucking booking it at 80, and his daughter's literally
bouncing around the
flinging
car
around the back seat, and I'm just thinking, what the fuck is happening?
And even his wife is just like, slow down. And he's like up over the dashboard with his face pushed up against the windshield with this like fucking angry ass expression.
Yeah, he looks like fucking third grade Jeff playing goddamn
Grand Theft
GTA on a fucking PlayStation, not. What are you doing, dude? I hate her parents. I'm glad everything works out in the end, but her parents are fucking douchebags, and I kind of hate them.
Well, we know that she's got a good head, so we don't have to worry about her.
So it's an interesting subject, though. Is I think not a inherent theme of the film as much as greed and avarice is, but nature versus nurture is interesting to think about, because by all accounts, Chihiro should be a little shit, and she kind of is.
She kind of is at the start.
But
she kind of is at the end, but in a different way.
But even at the beginning, when she's at her most annoying state, she does have redeeming qualities. Like I was talking about, how she's trying to get her parents to not just basically, they were going to pay for it later with his credit cards, like he mentions, but just the fact that they sit down and start mowing down the food without waiting for anyone to even acknowledge their existence in the park is kind of fucked up. And she's telling them, we should not be doing that. It's not right. It's not the right thing to do. We should wait and find people who are actually working in the park, and pay for it up front like you fucking should. So it's interesting that they're kind of making this explanation of nature versus nurture in their own right, in that Chihiro is openly probably a little shit just because of how bad her parents are,
right?
And deep down, the nature aspect of her character is to be a good person, because she has no self-confidence, but she's always thinking of other people, and she's never, she has multiple instances where she can take gold from No Face, and she always rejects it. There's the scene where that kind of throws No Face for a loop when he sneaks her the bathhouse coin for the special herbal water or whatever, and he later takes her the basket of, like 30 of the fucking tokens, and she's like, no, I only needed the one. She's always a good person.
Who gave her all the bath tokens? Don't look at me.
I love the back and forth between some of the staff.
Yeah.
And Yubaba. I like how some of them get kind of they start to act like they're gonna stand up to Yubaba, and then as soon as she puts up a fight, once she goes from Agnes to Agatha, they just fuck right out the building, dude.
Oh my god. She went from Agnes to Agatha in fucking 2.3 seconds. Oh god. That's awesome. No, I probably the selfishness is not the best way to describe it, now that I'm thinking about what I said. And it's more, she's very woe is me, playing the victim so much at the beginning of this, like with going to the new school and moving and having to make new friends. And yeah, that all sucks. But like everything that she says, everything that her parents like say to her about like, oh, like new school doesn't look so bad. And she's just like, ugh. And like not even giving anything a chance. And then when she gets trapped in the spirit world, even with people that are trying to help her, she's just kind of like, yeah. I mean, granted, one of them is a spider, but like Lynn looks very human.
One of them is a spider,
but like Lynn is very human looking, and she's very standoffish to like Lynn, who's pretty much the only lifeline she has at the moment.
I also just think it's very fascinating to think of the subtext behind the characters like Lynn, because she has to be a spirit, right?
She has to be.
She has to have been a person that had died. So there's all these little like interesting things to think about with these characters' backstories that are fascinating to think about, because all these characters are ostensibly dead,
So you start to think
about what led Lynn to get into this situation as an employee of the bathhouse.
Right. Let me ask you something. In the different various animes that deal with the spirit world, there is a running theme, like in Bleach and in Inuyasha specifically, they just out and out say it. The more human a spirit looks, the more powerful and intelligent and often more dangerous they are. If you think about Lynn compared to a lot of the other spirits working in the bathhouse, she seems to have like the higher IQ out of everyone there. She's also got like the most attitude and everything. Do you think that there's a correlation there, that is a thing that's at play as well?
It's very possible. There also seems to be an almost evolution to the spirits. Because you'll notice there are characters that are straight up human like Lynn, and then there's animals that are just legitimately just fucking animals, like the frog. He's literally a fucking frog. And then you have like the hybrids that seem to be almost animals that are maybe reaching higher levels of cognizance in their evolution to spirit form. So maybe the human aspect is the kind of final evolution for some of the spirits. I don't know.
There's a lot of the ones that tend to be in a more serving role, more of a servant role, that look an awful lot like those little shrine statue guys that you see along the side of the road in a lot of different anime and stuff too. Even the foreman kind of looks like one. Which
is just great world building, because it makes the bathhouse so fascinating to think about, because they never really tell you shit.
Yeah.
The only background you get at all, and it's just the perfect level of background to make her still remain mysterious. Yeah, I got bathhouse on the brain. With the backgrounds of Haku and Yubaba being the only characters in the bathhouse you really get any background at all, and it's just the right like amount to give you more insight into their thinking while also keeping them mysterious. It's the perfect like just chef's kiss of walking that fine line between explaining too much and explaining too little. And they just explain so little about the concept behind the spirits that it just makes the whole thing so fascinating and immersive. And it's so cool because it should be like that, because the point of view character of the film is Chihiro.
Yeah.
So she's not going to have time, because she only spends about a week there.
And if
she's not going to have time to learn everything.
Yeah. And if this world already existed, right, then we're not going to be sitting here talking about where all these people came from or the origins of the bathhouse or anything. It's a fact of life for the spirits. It's always been there. It's still going to be there when she's gone. Why do we need to stop and talk about it? The other thing, also to your point that I was going to say is, especially with the way they handle storytelling, we just fucking drop in a twin sister, Zeniba, out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, Zeniba," and it's just like, "Yeah, what the fuck about Zeniba? Where did Zeniba come from?" Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, that's just Zeniba." And
I don't think they ever allude to the fact that she has a twin sister at all until they just drop it.
Just drop it. And the thing that I love, you're like, wait, twin sister, also a witch, right? Is she good or is she bad? And that changes depend on who she talks to. Some people are like, oh, God, Zeniba's probably more dangerous than Yubaba, is what I think Kamaji says.
Yeah.
And then there are other people that are, just like, well, Zeniba's the victim here because Haku's an asshole. And it's just like, which one is it?
It's almost interesting in that it's a little bit of a Wizard of Oz parallel.
Yeah.
They have the kind of Wicked Witch of the West angle going along because depending on your perspective, which is the evil one,
Yeah.
It's just fascinating.
And also is the twin witches, that is a reoccurring theme in video games and anime and everything. Is there a folk tale in Japan about twin witches?
Oh, I don't think it's just Japan only. I think that's just a storytelling trope the world over because you see that trope in something like Wizard of Oz is obviously not Japanese focused.
I guess
that's
true. Are they twins though, or are they just two different witches?
They're not twins. So if you're just talking specifically twins, it could be more of a Japanese inspiration, but evil witch and good witch, and it being a matter of perspective on which one you think is which.
There's a lot of that in Greek background, but the reason I ask is like even in Zelda, like Twin Rova is one of the major bosses in several of the games, and one is a fire witch and one is an ice witch, and they're twins. And in like Ocarina of Times, they're the ones that like raised Ganondorf.
I think it's really cool. Just a further quick aside.
That's our spin-off podcast of the spin-off podcast. Quick aside.
Is it too late to rebrand? Because we probably should have just called this fucker Quick Aside. But with how Japanese storytellers are always able to keep these running themes that never somehow become stale.
Yes.
Is really cool to me, and I think they do a great job, especially Studio Ghibli. There's so many common parallels in their motifs and their themes that run throughout all their movies that are all very culturally relevant, yet they walk that tightrope to make it work for American audiences. It's a masterclass of filmmaking.
Meanwhile, last week we were
quarantine while
we were screaming last week in Dragon Ball Evolution, please retire this storyline.
Yeah. And Americans are fucking terrible at it. We are terrible at it.
And here we are, like, Spirited Away. Oh, the same concept again. Good on you, Spirited Away.
Because the difference
the way
is
it's
that
treated,
Japanese filmmakers and storytellers and they're able to make these motifs cultural touchstones. What we do is just half-ass them into being fucking dumbass tropes like the prophecy and the chosen one that are so fucking just ground into the dirt and they have no value left. That like I'm just like literally rolling my eyes when they go out of their way to like tie in the fucking apocalypse to the goddamn eclipse in Dragon Ball Evolution, and how we fucking circled around this wonderful conversation about cultural touchstones as weird away back to Dragon Ball Evolution
based on a Japanese property but fucked up by Americans. I wonder in Japan how many people roll their eyes at the concepts that we are praising at how it's handled time and time again.
I don't think so. I mean, at least in the regards of Ghibli, because Studio Ghibli movies are adored over there even more so. They have a fucking, like, don't they have a Ghibli amusement park over there?
Probably. That wouldn't surprise me.
God damn, I think they do, and I know they at least have a general anime theme park, because I've seen the fucking, have you ever seen the Attack on Titan? Titan that you can they have it's like those little things in amusement parks where you can pose next to it and take a picture.
Yeah.
They have a full-size Titan. You can stand inside the gripping hand like you're about to get eaten.
I'm looking at it right
by the
now.
fucking Titan, dude. And I want to book a fucking ticket to Japan the day the pandemic ends just to go take a picture there with that thing because it's fucking amazing, dude. Japan's the fucking best. They have a goddamn Nintendo restaurant, dude.
Is that the one that ate his mother?
I think so.
I think that's the one that ate his mother. Spoilers for Attack on Titan, like episode 1.
Fuck, dude. Japan's
man.
the best. Japan's the best. It's fucking amazing.
That is horrific and terrifying, and I want to go.
Yeah, we're going to fucking Anime World at some point.
Fucking anime. I hope that's on the sign.
Don't think it's
fucking Anime World.
Anime World. I don't think it's. Now that I think about it, I think the Ghibli one I'm thinking of, I think they have a Studio Ghibli like exhibit and museum, but I don't think it's part of the amusement park. I think the amusement park is more of the I think they have a life-size Evangelion. I think they have the Attack on Titan statue that you can pose next to. I think it's shit like that, but I don't think Ghibli's tied to it now that I think about it. But nevertheless, I fucking love this movie. just this conversation we've had about this movie, like the nitty-gritty details that you can bury into about is like, are these characters all dead? Are all of the pigs humans that have been lured into a trap? All this shit is never explained, and that's what makes it cool. They do that kind of immersive world building where they give you just enough information to make you invested and question what you're seeing, but never spoon feed you anything to the point that it becomes kind of obnoxious. And I love that about this film and all the movies.
Yeah, and it's what this movie is, what the world building is in it specifically is called Shinto, I believe it said. And that is basically the number one religion in Japan, where everything around you has a spirit that inhabits it. So you have the radish spirit, and you have all these river spirits, and things like that. We have what we thought was a stink spirit that turns out to not be one. It was a polluted river
spirit.
It was a river spirit of a very polluted river.
When she helps the river spirit and he just says well done, and he's got that weird ass fucking facial design on that mask, like he's like half mask half face,
looks like an old man.
It's fantastic, and you're just like, what the fuck? And the fact that he ends up tying into, he's a fucking foreshadowing of what Haku is.
Yep.
Because he is because their rendition of a river spirit is the Japanese dragons. That's fucking beautiful foreshadowing. That the first time I watched it, I didn't even realize that it was foreshadowing until I rewatched the movie for the second time, and I was like, holy shit, dude, that is such a cool callback.
And he's kind of a dragon-like creature as well, though his body is kind of a dragon-like, because he comes up just a mask at first, and then when everyone starts freaking out about the gold and Yubaba is like, shut up, you idiots, our guest is still here, he bursts out of the water, and he's got like the fucking body of a dragon.
Also, just more greed thematics with the characters is when you just see like their kind of stance on consumerism, with just how much of a shit they always portray all the people in the bathhouse, that all they care about is fucking people are getting eaten, and they're like, I want the gold. Fuck the people that are getting literally eaten by fucking No Face Slimer,
No Face Slimer.
Another great bit of character design that I adore that we didn't talk about. When the baby gets turned into the little mouse,
yes,
and the other bird gets turned into the little baby bird, and the baby bird is always carrying around the giant fat mouse and is like exhausted by the end.
The facial expression,
they're adorable.
That facial expression on that little bitty bird, that's just me all the time these days.
Perpetual mood.
Just perpetual mood.
They're adorable. When they're taking a nap together, dude, on the fucking train. Oh my god.
Dude, fuck that. When they're like helping spin the thread or whatever, and then they stop and take a little snack break.
Oh yeah. They like when they eat the little cookies. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the bird gets a cracker, dude, and the cracker's bigger than his body, and he's just sitting there with it in his mouth, while the mouse like eats a couple of like cherries or grapes or something, and then they run back and get back to work.
When they show them, when they've established that it's bad luck to step on the sludge, and the little mouse dude walks over, steps on it, just to prove how like brave he is, and he starts panicking, and he does a little like bad luck break ritual where they they
I just took
split the hands.
I just took that as they were just acting out the scene that happened, and not really that they were like actually scared of anything.
I get that impression just because that's the baby, and the baby was kind of like he's always trying to prove how like like later on.
Well, I took it as
she offers to let them ride on her shoulder if they're tired, and he's like he brushes her off, and he's like, no, I can carry him. He's always kind of like trying to strive out and prove that he's capable.
Well, not only that, to me, that's just a baby, right?
Yeah,
like
that too.
My kids mimic pretty much everything that I do, which is dangerous. And then,
dangerous.
And then they'll be really stubborn and then regret it like almost 5 minutes later.
It's also cool too. I just thought about it. Chihiro and her parents actually end up getting paralleled as well by Yubaba and her baby. Mm-hmm. She has basically locked her baby inside this literal fucking padded cell, dude. And she has the baby brainwashed into thinking if it goes outside, it'll be killed by germs.
I didn't like this in a post-pandemic world as a father as much as I have in the past.
Right.
Because
it's very prescient.
My kids have had questions about why did we stop going to school? Why don't we see grandma and grandpa every week? So I was like, well, I mean, they're asking so often. The easiest way to describe it was, well, there are these germs out in the world, and my son has really latched onto that and is always bringing up the germs and always talking about the germs. And if we can't do something, is it because of the germs? And listening to this kid talk, listening to Bo talk about the germs in that scene with Chihiro/Sin, I was just like, oh my God, it's my son. It's literally my son. That's what he sounds like right now, and I don't like it. I hate it.
Yeah, the difference being, though, is there's good cause for it right now, and the Yubaba is just being a shitty parent, and
it was just too close to home. It was hitting too close to home.
Yeah, I totally understand. I can't imagine trying to explain the I can't fully wrap my mind around a pandemic. I can only imagine what a 4-year-old's reaction would be to but
they knew something changed that, and I knew it was going to be a while. I just had to figure out a way to explain it, but he's very fascinated by the germs, and he talks about the germs a lot, and just listening to Bo talk about it, I was like, oh God.
I'm so happy for your kids that they'll barely remember this goddamn pandemic, because the fact that I haven't been able to sit down and have a beer with my friends for over a year now makes me sad to my very core.
Yeah.
With the thing though that I find really interesting, and it's again very subtle and great storytelling, is the parallel of the greed as far as how much it corrupts them as employees of the bathhouse trying to take advantage and earn money. And with the problem that consumerism can have with parenting, because Yubaba, if you see in the background at all times and the way she talks to the baby, is she is overly sheltering the baby, also by just showering the baby with the presents. There's thousands of gifts all around the
aren't
room
even open,
because she's trying to buy parenting of her fucking child through those gifts instead of just being a good parent and letting them grow and letting them strive out and make it on their own. And she's mortified by that idea, so she's being a very bad parent through the sheltering and with the gifting and the overuse of gifts as a crutch instead of letting the baby understand what's the outside world really is. And that is all subtext. It's just background details.
Did you notice?
That's wonderful storytelling.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Did you notice that when Haku is revealing that her child is not her child, she's upset about it at that moment, but then the gold turns to mud, and then that's when she just loses her shit and flies around and then starts looking for her baby. But at first, her first reaction is just, what? And then the gold changes into dirt, and she just, and just like flips the table over, and
she goes full fucking Foku Super Saiyan 3.
Yeah. Well, she goes full fucking Twin Robo, like I was talking about, the fire. Like, she just fucking fire everywhere. Can we talk real quick about the symbology in literally signing away your name?
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that because I thought that so. Now, that is probably the most cultural touchstone that we don't fully comprehend because names in America don't mean nearly as much as they do in Japan.
Right.
You know, to the fact that their formal representation of their names in Japan is, I believe, last name first, and I believe
so.
that's I believe it's the same way in China as well. That they, you know, it's all about your family legacy instead of your individual name, and with this one, just the way that they kind of like tie all that together is really cool.
Yeah, and the way you literally sign away your name the way that, you know, we symbolically do when we talk about buying a house or buying a car or opening lines of credit or or whatever. You can all tie it back in to even with the greed going on and her owning you because she owns your name and then to assign you a new one because she owns you.
It's so good. It's like consumerism leads to the death of individuality.
It basically,
and it's a fascinating concept that is again just subtext. It's there for you to latch onto and really think about.
Movie, dude.
Yeah, it's just there for you to latch onto, and there's so much depth in this movie that you like. Anyone who's watched this once, please go watch it again because, fuck, dude, there's so much good depth of world building and theme, and I love shit that doesn't you know jam its overuse of themes down your throat, and it just lets you delve into it as much as you want or as much as you know don't want.
Mm-hmm.
And just like the intellectual conversation that you can have just based on this movie, based on shit they don't even talk about. This is background detail, and it's just a wonderful amalgam of storytelling between these animators, you know, like a lot of the background details as far as what gets included in a scene in the background to establish character, you know, as far as you get a lot of background information, for instance, from Yubaba's shit on her desk, you know, like the fucking skull phone, the skull blue yeti.
There's also symbology in the resolution to the movie because it's a fucking business contract. It's a fucking business deal. Letting her and her parents go, but on the condition that she can identify them. It's a fucking business negotiation between two entities, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can extrapolate that out to corporations and everything else. And talking about this in a very business-like situation when these are human fucking lives, it's very... it's almost more pertinent today when we talk about Amazon and employees of Amazon and the fucking ad that they had recently. You know,
oh god,
all of the what's the word I'm looking for? Jeff, help me out. Fucking. I lost it because there's a microphone in front of me, so I can't come up with words.
What's the context? I have no idea.
There was an ad, unionization.
Oh, okay.
The anti-union ad that Amazon put out where there's all these, like, people wearing Amazon vests that seemingly have guns to their head saying, I don't need to unionize, I love my job, and all that. It really...
It's gross.
Kind of hit me. There's some awesome parodies of it, though, on YouTube. There are some amazing parodies. But yeah, it was fucking awful. But that's stuff like that is what was popping into my head when we know that Haku's not under her control anymore. But the way that this fucking world works is, you know, I want them to go home. You've got my baby. Let's negotiate a contract. And here's the payment. But this has to happen, and these are fucking human lives that we're talking about, like inventory. It was
she uses her fucking baby as a bargaining tool.
Yeah.
And you're asking what the fuck is happening right now.
Yeah.
But the movie is just so and to have a movie with so much intellectual depth and there's so much there to dive into, to be as sweet as it is.
Yeah.
Fucking when they take the time to establish that No Face is very good at the sewing and he's gonna hang out with is it Zaniba? Is that the twin sister's name?
Zaniba.
when they just established that No Face and Zeniba are gonna be buds. And I'm just like, oh,
it's a very hopeful movie.
Yeah, there's so much there, but it's never, because they don't preach the theme. It never becomes dour or in your face. It's just a very hopeful movie.
Yeah. It's a very, very hopeful movie, even with the themes that it's dealing with and the lessons it's trying to get across. It's saying that, like, these are things we need to be aware of, but it's not all bad. There can be, like, good that can come out of it, or there are good things to find in the dark moments. And it's just fucking it's good.
Every time I watch it and I just sit down and you can't fully appreciate Spirited Away until you've watched it twice, because he really missed up, like the foreshadowing of the river spirit especially. Right. I was like, holy fuck, that's fucking genius when I realized what it was foreshadowing, And when you just like take a look at the broad spectrum of themes that it's able to get, just the idea that consumerism and boiling someone down to a fucking credit score is an aspect of reality that we have to deal with, but we don't have to let that run our lives.
Right.
We can choose to focus on the shit that's important, like our families and our friends, and remember to always focus on keeping individuality and being a good person even in the face of dark times and dark circumstances. It's a beautiful message. And that's just, that's always the thing that I always walk away from this movie. Like, this is an uplifting. I literally feel like there's a pep in my step after I finish this movie.
Yeah.
It's just so good.
I Wikipedia just saved me. I knew that there was a second example of the environmentalism stuff I wanted to talk about. The first one was the stink spirit, right? He was a river spirit. That he was all sludgy and mistaken for a stink spirit because of all the pollution in the river, right?
He's pollution incarnate, essentially.
Basically. Something Captain Planet would fucking fight. And then
yeah, you're not wrong.
And then the second one was Haku. The Kohaku River doesn't exist anymore. It's an apartment building.
And him not being able to find his way home. Oh my god, I want to cry.
He couldn't remember his name or find his way home because it literally doesn't exist anymore.
It's so heartbreaking, but also such a beautiful thing that he's able to, because he makes a very dear friend in Chihiro. He's able to kind of find himself.
Yeah.
And it's also about, just like you're mentioning, like with the environmental stuff. It's about your union with nature and how important it is for us to take care of the goddamn planet that we call home and not fucking burn it into the goddamn ground, but
Which
many
is
people.
Kind of the lesson to be learned from the religion that this is based on. I just lost it. I want to say Shinto,
I think you said.
Yeah, there it is. I just found it on the page again. Yeah, Shinto. I wanted to make sure I got that right. But yeah, the lesson to be learned that is there's like I said, a spirit that lives in everything, inanimate objects, living things, non-living things. There's a spirit that inhabits it, and you treat that with respect. And yeah, that's kind of, I guess, kind of overall, you could almost extrapolate everything out to just kind of tie into the word respect is the lesson of this movie more than anything.
And communion.
Respect and communion for yourself and people and things around you.
Yeah. Even though the world's a dark place, don't let that kind of overtake
there are still bright lights, even in the dark, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a beautiful fucking movie.
It's an incredible movie.
Maybe the best representation of theme. And there's a lot of themes, but just the way that the story so organically presents its themes in such an effective way. It's just a masterclass of a movie, and I appreciate it more and more. And I think that's the thing because I think the thing that I latch on, because if you want to compare these three movies, kind of like my three favorites out of the ones I've seen so far, like I mentioned, between Howl's, Spirited Away, and Princess Mononoke. Mononoke gets me because of just how fucking good the world building is.
Yes.
And Howl's pulls me in because of how good the characters are. But if you just want to talk about a beautiful representation of its themes, that's Spirited Away. It's a beautiful movie, both spiritually, literally the way that it looks. Its animation is gorgeous. It's so vibrant and it sucks you in.
Really
and
good
it's
use
just a
of
beautiful
color.
movie. Yeah.
Especially at night with all the different lights and the colors on the spirits and everything. Really good use of color.
So here's an interesting question. We mentioned earlier about how you have you have two kids that are, they're 4 years old, right?
Yes.
Turning 5 this year, I believe, if I'm remembering it right.
That is correct.
How old do you think they would have to be before you introduce them to this movie? Because I think this is a really important movie to actually show to kids. And I think you can show it to kids fairly young, but I was just kind of curious how young, like what age do you think you would like your kids to be before you kind of introduce them to this to kind of...
I was thinking about that when my wife and I finished watching it. There's a lot of movies that I want to show them that 10 is kind of the mark. I would say probably at least 7 for this one, but 7 to 10 I think is good. Because there are still some nightmare-inducing fuel for a kid that doesn't understand what's going on.
Oh, you mean like the pig parents?
Like the pig parents, that's pretty bad.
You don't want to take them to the fucking Golden Corral and your kids are going to think you're going to fucking turn into pigs.
I think for a young kid, I think No Face would probably be pretty terrifying.
Man, when they first show him on the bridge, he's such a fucking striking design that I'm just mesmerized by it.
What kind of fucking gift is an emetic dumpling? Wikipedia describes it as. What kind? Who the fuck says, "Hey, well done. Here's an emetic dumpling"? What the fuck? An emetic is a thing you eat to induce vomiting.
Yeah.
And well done. Go throw up. Like what?
Yeah, not a combination of words you like to hear.
Like what the fuck?
Also just after being around anime ever since I was a little kid because of Dragon Ball, I really want to try those little like rice cake things they're always eating.
Yeah.
They look.
Yeah.
Because they always fucking mow down, especially Goku will fucking mow down about 30 of those motherfuckers, and I'm just like, what do they taste like? I'm very curious.
He's just gonna be hungry again in an hour. The ones that are kind of gooey looking, I've actually had before because
onigiri, I think they're called.
I think, yeah, they got the little black stuff in the middle of them, and they're real gooey.
Yeah, they're wrapped, but they're holding together like little patch of seaweed or whatever.
Yeah, those things. I've had those, and those are actually pretty good. It's like a little bean bun thing with this clear like goo stuff on the outside. I've had those because going to the schools that I did here actually has a fairly strong South Korean presence.
Okay.
And there's a couple of buddies of that would just bring like me and Bobby some of that stuff just to try, just to see. Sometimes to see our reactions, but sometimes be pleasantly surprised. Like that's actually really good. And that was one of them.
I fucking love Oriental food so much. Some of my favorites. I'd eat that shit up, dude.
Ask Bobby next time you talk to him about the caterpillar in the cocoon.
Oh God, that sounds just like that sounds like a fucking Ghibli movie right there.
The caterpillar in the cocoon.
Right? You can totally see that movie in your head now.
Oh my God, I'll let him tell the story.
Okay, I'm mortified and curious now. anytime you're leading
I'm
me
just
into
bringing it
that...
up, so we will get the text message in the group text from him.
Oh yeah.
I know it's gonna happen.
Always mortified when I have to wait for Bobby to tell me something.
I wasn't there for it, but I heard it from from Justin, who was from South Korea, that gave him the thing, and our buddy John. I heard it from them. And Bobby himself, and I heard it. It was all happening in the same moment, and like the next day that it happened, I heard the same story 3 different ways, 3 different perspectives, and it was amazing.
Yeah, I am now fascinated and terrified. I think I've touched on everything that I had in my notes. Any other kind of final thoughts on Spirited Away before we close out the episode, Ron?
No, not really. Just the overall use of themes and characters and the wide range of character development, even in characters that don't amount to a whole lot, is kind of interesting. I love that we start out with a character like Kamaji, who is just like, fuck you, go the fuck away. And then the first time someone's like, hey, you can't be here. What the fuck are you doing here? He's like, it's my granddaughter. Like, for no reason, because...
He's just a good dude.
He's just a good dude.
He gives her the like.
He doesn't have the time of day, but it doesn't make him a bad dude.
They established too that the train tickets are very rare.
Yeah.
And the train tickets that he's been storing for 40 years, he just gives them to her. Like he's such a good. And like that scene when she's fallen asleep and he takes the time to like use his Mr. Fantastic arms to like place the blanket over her.
Terrifying, Mr. Fantastic.
I should be terrified when the fucking Mr. Fantastic spider is reaching towards a 10-year-old little girl. And it's one of the most like touching scenes of the film.
The Mr. Fantastic spider reaching towards the little girl. Is this Mad Libs? What is happening?
Is a Mad Lib. That should be a fucking Stephen King short story, but it's one of the most beautiful scenes of the fucking film. Like, Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli, hats off to you. Y'all are on a next level, bro.
Lynn, I really like Lynn and her evolution of just, I don't have time to deal with this. I don't want to babysit. To no face, if you lay one finger on her, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, her voice actress really sells her because she has very limited screen time.
Yes,
so
and she makes very good use of it.
Yes, her character is 100% brought forth through the.
I'm sorry I called you a dope.
Yeah, she's like I'm sorry I called you dope, but she's walking away. Yeah, she just waves back. Her performance really sells that character. I agree. And I think that's going to be a wrap for our episode. We could wax poetic about this fucking movie for hours because it's just so deep and so good. But I think my final statement is just, it's a beautiful movie, both visually and thematically. And if you haven't seen it, go fucking watch it. And if you have seen it, go watch it again. You owe it to yourself to really just delve in and just watch it with an open mind and let your imagination get fueled by all of these very interesting world building aspects that we've alluded to in this episode, just as well as the thematics and just like the broad range of themes and motifs that it is able to fucking get across, dude, is just crazy to me. Yeah. And it's a beautiful movie. So please go check it out. Any other thoughts? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I think that's pretty much a wrap. If this hadn't been one that we were doing for Friends and Family Month, if this had just been one that we had picked, this one probably would have been one I would have said to go back to our old format of doing, almost, of actually walking through it, because it's just so good, and there's so much that you can not only pull from it but extrapolate out. Yeah,
I think we covered the important bits though, because
I believe so.
The important gist of the movie isn't the scene-by-scene breakdown that you can do. It's your interpretation of its themes.
But there are so many examples also to be had.
Absolutely.
And the clever bits of storytelling for shit that doesn't even matter sometimes, you know.
What we should do is, instead of doing the old format, there should be just a straight up commentary. We should watch the movie
do a commentary,
because then we can kind of just organically have it play along with the scenes.
Do we have a Patreon yet? That needs to be a level. Get the commentary.
Yeah, we need to make we have different ideas of stuff we'd like to do that we're kind of, stretching the format out a little bit, especially with the Friends and Family Month, is a really fun idea. And I think we should probably do this at least once a year, if not like twice a year, just throw it in there just to mix it up. And, because we've had such a broad range of discussions going from the beautiful and wonderful Spirited Away to the beautifully terrible Dragon Ball Evolution, but they're both equally fun to talk about, because that's the fucking beauty of movies, dude. You can have a goddamn movie as bad as Dragon Ball Evolution and have a blast talking about it with your friends, or you can watch something that's, so emotionally resonating as something like Spirited Away, and you're just blown away by it, and it's interesting to talk about because, shit, I mean, you want to talk about a movie that is actually worthy of talking about once a week, every week for a year, and you will actually be able to have original conversations about it, it's fucking Spirited Away.
Easily.
Because I could tell you right now, if I went back right now and sat down in my living room and watched this again, I would find more instances of these, thematic breakdowns that we've been having, that, sometimes even just the stuff maybe they didn't even fully intend, but, maybe one guy, and like, because animation, it's not just Miyazaki, it's a very collaborative process between all these animators, all these artists, a lot of it's such a group project with the development of the character and what they choose to show you. It's a beautiful format, and I fucking love. We need to have more animated movies on the podcast for sure.
Yes, we do, for sure.
It's a very rich tapestry to pull from. But yeah, our final installment of our first Friends and Family Month. We're wrapping it with Spaceballs from our buddy Bobby, which
yes.
What a great 1-2 punch of apples and oranges, Spaceballs and Spirited Away is, and I can't fucking wait.
And it'll be interesting because this will be the first movie that you and I are both intimately familiar with, right? Like, we both quote this thing left and right and sideways all the time.
It's probably the first time, because we've covered movies where we've both been familiar with, but not to the extent that I can literally quote the entire 2-hour runtime like Spaceballs. I can fucking recite Spaceballs right now, probably start to finish without even having it in front of me. I've seen it so many times and I fucking love it. It's probably it is definitely in my top 10 favorite movies. Maybe my favorite comedy ever is Spaceballs.
We're gonna have to name that episode. It's my Virgin Alarm. It's programmed to go off before you do.
Before you do.
For people that have never seen the movie, that needs to be the title of our episode.
That's the spoiler warning.
That's the spoiler warning.
Yeah. So if you would like to follow the show, obviously you can subscribe to whichever podcast platform.
Spoiler alarm. It's programmed to go off before we do.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it writes itself. So if you would like to follow the show, please be sure to subscribe to it to whichever platform you're listening to, on whichever podcast catcher you found us on. We are on Twitter. I am. You can find my personal Twitter at gmillerspr. You can follow show updates at SPR Filmcast, because Screenplay Rewind was 16 characters. Fucking gift that keeps on giving. Ron, where can people find you when you are not reminiscing and waxing poetic about wonderful Miyazaki movies?
You can find me on Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter at RonSenseTV, and I am live on Twitch every Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, starting generally somewhere in the neighborhood of 9:30 p.m. U.S. Central Time.
Yeah, check that out. So he just wrapped up Uncharted 4. What's your next game you're jumping into, or have you picked one yet?
I wish by the time this comes out, I'll already be into it, but the wife and I are actually going to be streaming Super Mario 35 before it goes away tomorrow night.
Oh, okay.
But then after that, Jeff, you're going to want to show up for probably is...
I'll be the judge of that.
Roguelike Souls, made by Grimrock.
Ooh. See, now you had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
Yeah, Grimrock made this one as well. Dark Souls remastered with the Roguelike Souls mod. It changes it into a roguelike. I played about 30 minutes of it to just get familiar with how it works, because it's the most complex mod I've used so far. And yeah, it's fucking fantastic.
Quickest aside of all quick asides, does Grimrock eat or sleep?
I don't believe so.
Because I feel like he has a new goddamn Dark Souls mod coming out every day, and just seeing the goddamn day and nighttime cycle of the fucking new one, the big one he's coming out with.
Yeah.
How the fuck does that guy find? Does he eat? Like, does he work?
He turned the depths into a chalice dungeon. It's randomized.
How the fuck is that even possible?
It's
and he fucking
randomized.
did it, dude. That's fucking bonkers, dude.
Okay, this is an off-mic conversation, but is he making that for Lobos Jr.'s St. Jude month? Because that's what this one was. Usually his big heavy hitter ones are for Lobos' St. Jude month, and then if he hits his goal, he releases it to public, because that's exactly what Roguelike Souls is.
Yeah, for sure. It wouldn't surprise me. They just take so much. Like, you know what he reminds me of is the goddamn Five Nights at Freddy's dude.
Yes.
Who was just
Scott Cawthon.
Who was just apparently just not sleeping for 2 straight years of his life when he released 17,000 Five Nights at Freddy's titles. And I can't find the time to fucking finish my goddamn book that I've been writing for like 10 years. How the fuck do these guys just nonstop turn out these fucking games that just take so much goddamn time, even to make a mod of a game, especially by yourself, which a lot of them have little teams now like Grimrock, but a big chunk of the shit is just him.
Last thing I'm going to say before we run out of here, because we got to go. Last thing I'm going to say, though, definitely give me a follow, because, Jeff, you and I are halfway through our vaccinations, and when that fucking Five Nights at Freddy's security breach drops for PlayStation, you're coming over.
Fuck yeah, dude.
You're coming over, and we are live streaming that shit.
Hell yeah. Yeah, that's just something too. Tyler had asked me if we had ever thought about live streaming stuff, and I think we'll probably eventually, because we almost had like a beta version of this podcast on. If you go back and look through, I don't know if the VODs are still up, I don't know how long it's been or if you had them on YouTube at all, but Ron and I did essentially commentaries and like live commentaries of movies on Sunday nights that we found either through like the Netflix group watch or the Amazon Prime group watch they have, and they have it on a few other platforms now, but essentially like a little beta version of this before we kind of jump into this specific screenplay rewind format. But yeah, well, I think we'll probably eventually have some type of live stuff. But yeah, we you want to talk about the fucking epitome of a fucking Jeff and Ron podcast? We're doing the sign-offs. I found a way to talk about Dark Souls
for 10 minutes.
For 10 minutes that no one needed to hear or listen to at all. But
and it's probably going to continue once we get out of here. So.
Oh, it's true. Yeah, it's always Dark Souls.
Always.
Dark Souls, Dark Souls, Dark Souls. You say Dark Souls 3 times and we appear in your fucking living room.
We appear in your living room holding your PlayStation controllers.
Yep. This is the way.
I have spoken.
I have spoken.
I have spoken.
Yeah, so we appreciate you listening to all of our quicker, and quickest asides. And I think this is actually a wrap. So yeah, have a good one. Go watch Spirited Away. It's fucking good. Thank you.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.